Hello, Dawn. Hi, my name's William Haddon from GS Gaming, and I thought we would go over a few of the basics of spellcasting. If you're looking for information on picking spells, spell books, all that kind of stuff, that was in a previous video. This one's going to be about the actual mechanics of casting a spell and using it on other people. The first and most basic part of a spell is the incantation. The incantation are the words that you speak in order to make the spell happen. Now, while you're doing the incantation, there are a couple of requirements. The first is you have to have your right foot planted on the ground. It can't move except to pivot. Next, you have to have one hand free in order to cast. If you're casting a spell on a material component, like a spell packet, the spell packet has to be the only thing in that hand. However, you can do whatever you want with the other hand. The incantation itself has to be spoken loudly and clearly enough to be understood easily by someone standing nearby. You can allow up to 2 seconds between words while casting, and you're actually allowed to make small mistakes or changes to the cast, as long as they don't adjust the complexity or length of the cast. So for example, you could use thou instead of you, or thus instead of so, and the spell would still go off just fine. When you complete your incantation, the material component you're casting on has to be in hand, or if you're casting a touch spell, the target of the spell has to be within range. If they aren't in range at the time that the incantation ends, then the spell won't go off. Also, if you are hit by damage or an effect or anything that physically stops you from casting, that will also disturb the spell and you won't be able to complete. If you don't complete a spell, don't worry, you don't lose the spell slot, you just have to start again from the beginning. So, you could start casting a spell, decide you have to move, run away, and then restart casting the spell without any loss of material components, resources, or spell slots. As a quick note, calling a counter, like a protect or a dodge or anything like that, does not interrupt spell casting. You can call the counter and go back to your incantation and complete the spell. Next, we'll go over deliveries. Deliveries are the ways that you move the spell from yourself to someone else. There are 4 main kinds of deliveries for a spell. These are packet, weapon, touch, and voice. The first and most common is packet delivery. Packet delivery comes in 2 forms. The first are spell packets, which look like this. They're small packets full of birdseed. These are generally used for cantrips. Cantrips are these small, sort of 0th level, at-will spells that you can cast as often as you like. The other kind of packet is called a spell ball. They're much larger, they're heavier, and they fly much further. And they're used for novice, intermediate, greater, and master level spells. Packets in Hollow Dawn are in-game items. They are small packets of what's called materia, which is a special mineral that can be charged with magical energy. Because they're in-game items, they're generally expected to be made from sort of in-genre materials like natural fabrics or neutral colors. To use a packet spell, you generally hold the materia packet in one hand, cast your spell, and then the packet will be charged. You can move around, you can do other things. As long as you keep it in hand, that material will stay charged. It can be sometimes nice to let other people know that it's still charged as you move around by saying magic active or spell wall active, but it will stay that way until you let it out of your hand or cast another spell. Touch delivery spells are spells that you will cast on another person who's in close proximity. Contrary to the name of the delivery, you don't actually have to touch them, and you definitely shouldn't unless you have prior consent. When you want to cast a touch spell on someone else, you reach out your hand so that it is within 6 inches of that person and cast your spell. Interestingly, all packet spells can be cast as touch spells on a helpless or willing individual. And if you do that, you don't need the packet. So you could, without the packet, you could cast the spell, have your hand within 6 inches of someone else that was bound or paralyzed or whatever, and complete your spell, and it would go off just as if you had hit them with a packet. Weapon delivery spells work a lot like packet delivered spells. You hold the weapon in one hand as you complete the incantation, and it will charge the weapon with whatever magic you used. The weapon will then stay charged until the weapon is until the power is used, until you let it out of your hand or until you cast another spell. The last common delivery is verbal. For a verbal spell, once you've completed the incantation, you immediately make a call on the opponent in which you get their attention by calling out their name or a description of them so that they know you're talking to them, and then you give them the effect of the spell. After completing your spell, you'll need to use a call. A call is actually the out-of-game signal that you use to communicate to the target of the spell what has happened. For packet delivery spells, you call it as the packet hits them, so that they know that that packet has those effects associated with it. For weapon delivery, same thing. As the weapon hits them, you make the call. For touch spell, you call it out after the incantation. And for verbal, as we just said, you make the call immediately after completing the incantation. Again, the call is entirely out of game. Although it gives the information about what just happened, it isn't an in-game thing. And those are the basics of spellcasting. If you have any questions, please check out our Discord server and the rules discussion channel, or ask us questions on our Facebook page. In any case, I hope you've learned something, and check you out next time. Thank you.